All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Dirk Rotenheis. I'm the chairman of the planning board. I'd like to go around the room and let the board introduce themselves.
Robert Davies, alternate.
Teresa Bascom.
Charlene Anderson.
Again, Dirk Rotenheis.
Susan Mooney.
Gary Anderson.
Joe Clough.
And this is the September 27th, 2017 planning board meeting. And we have a couple of public hearings tonight, a public comment session, which anybody's more than welcome to come up and provide comments. Not specific to any application, but if they've got planning questions or comments, they're more than welcome to come up after the public hearings. And then we go through some board informational pieces after that. And tonight we have two items on our public hearing agenda, and I'll get right into those. The first one is case 17. Before I do that, I want to seek Mr. Davies.
Thank you.
For Ed Beal. So Mr. Davies is a voting member of the board tonight. We have a full board. We'll hear case 17008 SUB. This is an application from James W. Haley requesting to subdivide 44.6 acres into two lots. One lot is 1.865 acres, and the other lot is 42.7. The area is to be subdivided is actually located within Barrington. So our specific jurisdiction in this is not to the actual subdivision lot. It is the parent lot. So this is a lot that straddles both Barrington and Nottingham, and they're creating Barrington and Nottingham, and they're creating a lot within Barrington. But the parent lot is still within Nottingham and Barrington. This has been heard at the Barrington Planning Board. They do have conditional approval through the planning board. One of the conditions was as a reciprocal or as a entity that has some interest in it, because some of the parcel lies within Nottingham. The board in Barrington requested that the applicant come before the Nottingham Planning Board to have public hearing to make sure that Nottingham is aware that the subdivision is taking place on a lot within its jurisdiction. So with that, I'd like to call the applicant up. If you've got some more information, maybe just describe the...
I don't know if I did. My name is Joel Reynolds. I work for Norwood Pines, closest to Rochester, representing Jim Haley in the back row. I said it pretty good.
So, if you could just describe the lot itself, and then maybe where the parcel would be is being subdivided.
Are we doing it overhead?
No, we don't
Okay.
have ability to make order.
You can ask me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The thing up on the board.
Yes, it is.
Great. We do have an easel right over here, if that's
all right.
okay.
One of the things that we've done here is that the perimeter of the property has already been surveyed before. So I'm not sure if you got copies of that before the application. I did that with Barrington. So the perimeter was surveyed already. And that shows you stuff here. Everybody's got plans. This is the detail over here. And way over here is where we're subdividing 2 acre lot off. And this is the town line over here. So this is Nottingham and this is Barrington. All of our frontage is on Barrington. Hall Road, all the land is there. That plan there was to create conservation land. And some of this lot 2 is in that conservation, is included in some of that conservation land, which the whole of the conservation knows that, and the way it was written up allows that to happen. So what we've done is, because of Barrington, it sounds like they're very similar to your regulations, where you'll waive the requirements of topography for the whole lot, things like that, wetlands. So Their lot size is 2 acres like here, almost like yours. Theirs 2 acres is 80,000 square feet, they do build as acres. So that's why it's not, this one is 1.8 acres instead of 2 acres.
Okay.
So we just do a second area for the remaining land, do topography in there, do wetland delineation, and do test pits in there. We did have to go through the state for subdivision approval here, which I've already got. Yes, that's it.
So our first action would be to accept the application. This is a little bit different in that it's not an application for a subdivision within our jurisdiction, but in order for us to be able to open a public hearing on it, we've received this application. I've reviewed it, Joanna's reviewed it. We also have all of the information in here. It meets, generally meets our regulations. They have requested a couple of waivers, pretty traditional ones that we've seen before, but with that, I'd enter a motion of acceptance.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the application for case 17-008 sub for hearing tonight.
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous. Now that the application's been accepted, we do have a waiver in order for us, prior to open the public hearing, the board needs to act on that waiver. And you guys should have the waiver in your, it's a newly printed off one. There was an older revision that didn't list out the specific elements for the waivers, but these are traditional ones that we've seen in the past for large lot subdivisions with a smaller single lot. So in this case, it would be a waiver for the whole parcel of showing the surveyed property lines, although there is a plan here that probably would conform to that. Existing grades, existing drainage, estimated location use, natural features such as the wetlands there, size of existing public utilities, location description of existing easements, and all of that has remained within the upper parcel, which, the remaining 34 acres.
I call it the area of interest that I do, the 4 acres area, so anything that, so, on your subdivision regulations, I've shown all those things in this area. It's just that I'm asking for the waivers of the remaining 34 acres.
Any questions on the waiver?
I thought we were required a separate waiver for each item.
They are, and it's listed out.
It's on the back.
It's on
So but there's only one waiver for all these items. Is that correct?
Well, it's a waiver for each section.
Well, what if we were to not agree with one or two of the waivers? Then what happens?
Excuse me, usually,
Yes.
I haven't been here before, but maybe I didn't understand, maybe I was supposed to do each page for each one, I didn't realize I need to just list them individually. Usually the towns that I go to, they vote on them individually.
Yeah, that's usually what we would do, as Buzz has indicated, you know, separately, which we can do maybe with this, if we just go through that list. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Is there any discussion on any of them in the list? Or do you want me to go individually?
Whatever you want to do.
Wait, point of clarification though,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. The waiver is not for anything that is going to be affecting the Nottingham parcel because nothing's happening to the land in the Nottingham parcel, correct?
Correct.
So these waivers are for the parcel that's in Barrington?
No,
I don't want to get in an argument with anybody, but the RSA states that we don't need to be here. Municipal boundary lines can constitute a subdivision. And we're not, nothing, the lot size is all in Barrington. If we were to use some of the lot size in Nottingham, yes, we should have a public hearing. But Barrington's attorney feels differently than what I would say states. So, yeah, I agree with you. I don't know why you're doing this.
Well, I'm just asking, what my clarification question was that nothing that you are doing to the land is going to affect the portion of land that's in Nottingham. So the waiver questions don't really affect the parcel in Nottingham, do they?
They don't, but they affect the application, because in our requirements, we require them to show all topography. So we see that often, that for large tracts of land,
Correct,
so landowners don't have to have the
Expend that money.
expense of
right,
surveying the whole parcel for the topography,
right.
that becomes a waiver. So we have that in our requirements, in the town of Nottingham's requirements, to have topography for all of it. So similar to this, we don't have topography for
Our
our
portion.
portion. So that's why there's a waiver for
Okay,
it.
that's what I wanted to
It's a
know,
waiver from our requirements, town of Nottingham requirements.
because this application really doesn't affect our land,
Yeah.
or his land on our property, on our,
And it's-
in our town.
And it's only for our regulations of submittal information.
Okay,
And plan information.
that's all I
It's-
wanted to know.
This is not, these aren't waivers for setbacks, dimensional waivers, square footage, anything like that. It's more for because we have a checklist of things that planning board needs to show in their application, so we have full information of it.
Right.
And in this case,
Not
especially this
necessary.
case, we don't need a lot of information.
I make a motion that we accept the waivers as presented for case number 17-008-SUV.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. So now we can hear the project. So at this point, I would open the public hearing.
Can I speak again?
Absolutely can. You're public, you're here. Yes.
When you mentioned the application, I spoke to you earlier about the application, I had everything, I'm going to meet everything, there's a couple of items that I'm missing. My list of, my general notes up here where I mentioned lot size, and I always mentioned Barrington lot size, so I'll add the Nottingham lot size to it, and I'll add the Nottingham setbacks. So those was a couple of little things, that's why I didn't want to tell you that I had it also, but I'll have that on the final.
That's great. No.
That's it.
Okay, so I'd like to keep the public hearing open. Those in favor or against this application, please come forward. If you have a discussion item, or if I can recognize you from here, if you would like to have a statement.
I think I would just like to see that map, I'd like to see what the lot is in reference to the property line.
Would you mind showing her?
Sure.
I promise.
This is the side of the house. This is the town line. Did we get her name? So the whole house is looking like this. And you subdivide this corner over here, 2 acres on the side.
Oh, okay, here's the access to a road.
This is 2 Mile Road, and this is Hall Road. And
Yeah.
Could I just have your name, just?
I'm sorry, Susan Loveland.
Okay. Anybody else in the public would like to speak for this application? Yes.
Hi, Denise Hart. I just have a question. Where's 2 Mile Road? Is it?
It's a Class 6 road.
It's a Class 6 road, okay. And how many parcels are going to be subdivided on the Barrington side?
Just one.
Just the one? Oh, thank you.
See? If you see.
I couldn't see it before. Thank you.
This is the whole parcel. I want to give a portion of town road. This is 2 Mile Road. Hall Road.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else in the public have a comment on this application? One more time, anyone else have comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for any action. In this case, I am asking for subdivision approval of this application.
So we approve the subdivision?
We would approve the subdivision.
Okay.
That was what was requested by Barrington, and since the application is
Okay.
for approval, that's the action we would need.
Would it be appropriate to add the condition that the Nottingham lot size and setbacks be added to the note section?
Yep.
I mean, you've indicated that you're going to, but I think it should be a condition, yes?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case 17-008 sub as submitted by the Keeleys, with the condition that the Nottingham lot size and setbacks be added to the notes section on the final plat.
And the waiver.
And, well, the waivers were approved? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
So there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Gary. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it's unanimous. Thank you, it was, hopefully it was worth your time.
It was, I wasn't gonna get approval from Barry.
Next on the agenda, I want to remind everybody that or maybe not remind anybody, but I want to let everyone know that the microphone system in the room is like on low volume, and it's at the highest dial, but it's hard to hear. So for everybody's benefit, if members at least can speak up, and if you do come up to the microphone, try and project a voice. So the next case we have, the public hearing, is to consider a revocation of a plan for map 3, lot 10, on Old Nottingham Road. It was previously approved November 16th, 2005. It was filed with the Rockingham Registry of Deeds as Plan D 33445, and also book 4626, page 1507. And the board is considering the revocation for failure of compliance with the conditions of approval. So this plan was approved in 2005 and is not in compliance with those, the conditions. So we would be hearing that, and this is a public hearing for the revocation. And there's two primary reasons for this revocation, as it was indicated. That this is for non-compliance of the conditions of approval, and there's two items here that are the primary reason, and that's administrative condition number 12. And it's the design, construction, and operation of water bottling facility shall comply with all applicable New Hampshire and federal permitting requirements. In this case, there was a condition and order which identified a number of violations to a wetlands impacts, so that condition was not met. And then also the administrative order was also still open, and that was number 17, a performance bond or similar security instrument satisfactory to the Town of Nottingham Planning Board and held by the the Board of Selectmen. Shall be established prior to the construction and in the amount sufficient to stabilize stormwater management structures and erosion in the event that construction is abandoned. The town did not receive any performance bond or any similar instrument was ever provided to the town. So in this case, we have two of these conditions, and those are the reasons for revoking this plan. Tonight, we'll have a public hearing, which we will open up to the public to have a discussion of the revocation. But this is really an administrative order. It is a process that since the planning board approved this project in 2005 and is no longer in compliance with the order of conditions, we can now revoke that plan, and that's what is this tonight's proceedings is for. The town has, it is no longer owned by the previous applicant. The town now is currently has control of that property, and if anything else was to be put there, it needs to come back to the planning board for any approvals in a number of permitting agencies for any further approvals or new approvals. So by revoking this site plan, we essentially have the site plan that was approved. We bring that back in as now would be revoked through this public process and by the vote of the planning board. I'd like to open it to any questions from the planning board relative to this. Comments? I'd like to open the public hearing. Public hearing, please come up, state your name, state your comment relative to the revocation, and that's the reason for this meeting. Thank you.
John Ternenko. I've been here 50 years now, and I'm only 16. This is more of a question, because this whole process over the years has been kind of bizarre. But at the last court hearing, there was a statement that Rotundo still had 3 years in which he could activate his project. Is that true?
I don't know. It's up to the town's legal advisors have provided the town with legal advice relative to that. But as far as the planning board, that's not irrelevant to this revocation.
I'll re-ask my question then. I assume it's going to get revoked. So if Rotundo does decide somehow to try to put together USA Springs, he would have to get some kind of document like this approved.
Yes, if they were going to redo, if that was if that was in the works, they would have to come before the planning board and other permitting agencies to re-permit that site.
Okay, so it's not likely. You don't have to say anything.
Thank you. Anybody else have comment, question? Yes, ma'am.
All the way up there, huh?
It'd be best if you would. If you don't have to, though, we can hear you from here.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Because I watch some of these meetings at home, and I sit there and I say, speed up, speed up.
So now you're on the hot seat.
Yes, yes.
Right. I just want this to be really clear in my mind.
Yeah, can you state your name, please?
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Susan LeClaire.
Yeah.
And I just want this so clear in my mind that I won't forget it by tomorrow. I'm older now. But the thing of it is, are these two things, the wetlands and the performance bond, were these from DES, do you know?
Those are,
Have their list, they had a list of requirements that they wanted met before this passed, and I didn't think they had passed, that many. Okay.
no, the answer is no. These are conditions that the planning board had.
Good. That's good. And so, I mean, I think I thought the permit for them had run out anyway, even if this fellow comes back and thinks he wants to do water bottling.
There's always appeals.
I agree. Okay. So, well, Kind of sorry to hear about the appeals. Do you think if we could wipe them
Well,
out of the
I'm,
dictionary?
I'm not an attorney.
Not either, but I
Nothing
think
ever
that-
is over before it's over, but yeah, there's always, you know, there's a court order that has the town owning the property.
That is true.
I don't know, I'm not an attorney, and nor do we have any on the board that would have been talked about.
Okay, I don't want to waste your time, but
Thank
I
you.
just kind of want to be able to look out my front window and breathe a sigh of relief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Hadley, and I chair a group called Neighborhood Guardians. We've been in business about 12 years. We're trying to get out of business. We went in business because the planning board, a prior planning board, approved the site plan back in 2005. So I did submit a one-page summary because there's other things that we feel are germane to this, and one is state law as far as being vested. They changed the law a few years ago, and number 3 of my handout, all public and private improvements approved by the town must have been expended within 5 years of the date of approval of the plan. So that's another area that we're concerned about. It's been 12 years since the plan was approved. And the other item is just all the state permits, have expired. And one of the things that I read years ago on the approval was all permits must remain in full force and effect in order for the USA Spring site plan to remain valid. So in my handout, I just have a couple pages on a seminar that I attended several years ago, local government center, Attorney David Connell, and he has a good summary of what you're doing tonight. And I would appreciate if you would strongly consider revoking this after 16 years. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your input. Sorry.
I said thank you.
Yeah, that's maybe more supporting information for it. We have 2 primary ones that we're at least looking at this evening. Any other comments from the public, please?
Peter White, 61 Whites Grove Road, and I would like to urge the board to revoke this plan for the reasons stated so far. And also clearly, this would be in the public interest of the people in, Mother Nature and our water resources, Nottingham, to revoke this permit. It would protect our water resources from any possibility of any resurrection of this project in the next 3 years. There is some bankruptcy window there. So the planning board can act tonight to protect the people and the water resources of the town of Nottingham from that being brought back before us and eliminate that possibility. So please revoke it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to instruct the planning board that the only reason we have in front of us right now are these 2. So just keep that in mind. This is more supporting information, more reasons potentially for it, but it's good information. Any other from the public like to speak to, for, against? Second time, anyone from the public? Third and last time to be heard in this public hearing. Public hearing's closed. So it comes back to the board for action. And I'd entertain a motion to either revoke, or if we don't, then it remains as it is right now.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we revoke a plan for map 3 lot 10 on Old Turnpike Road, previously approved on November 16th, 2005, and filed with the Rockingham County Register of Deeds as Plan D 33445, and also Book 4626, page 1507.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board?
Just a clarifying question, so the 2 points, why it's here today, that was validated by our town attorneys?
Yes. Yes. And I'll call for a roll call vote. So I'll start with Joe.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, Shelley Nansen.
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you for coming out.
before, while people are leaving, I just want to point this little section out to you on that RSA.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're welcome.
well, thank you for coming.
Just want to see if you're lost your touch.
Everything in the appeal.
Oh, yeah, with enough money.
Well, that's good.
All right, well, I'll get that one.
Well, we don't have to worry about public
Well, now's
comment
a
now.
public comment. No one stuck around for it.
I think we already heard it.
We got it. All right, well. You missed it too. We can bypass that. I do have a little bit more stuff to go through, not too much more. While it hasn't been official, but now apparently it is, because Joe's name placard has CIP representative on it.
I noticed that as I put it up there, I was like, did you
So-
agree to it?
Yes.
So he is forcefully accepted.
Yes.
And I can't remember if we need to vote on that. Do we need to vote those positions, say?
I think we had. Yeah, I thought it was maybe the second or third meeting that I was here when this was discussed.
Right, yep,
So
yep.
I can go back and look at the minutes, but
No, I looked at him, I'm like, I thought you had agreed to that, and he goes, I did, but I'm waiting to find out more about it, and I said, oh, okay.
part of that was that Paul said he was gonna walk me through it, but
So at least let the minutes reflect that Joe Buck will be the CIP representative for the board.
If they don't already in past minutes, but I think they do.
Yep. So then we won't vote on it. We have some plans to sign. You know, one of the things I do want to just put into the ear of the board is that, you know, with the revoking of the site plan, you know, the potential is now that there's land available for development or future development, or something may happen on that site or adjacent sites. And as things have developed along Route 4, we've had this, you know, our zoning is commercial, but it's also has reverted back to some residential use. So we're quickly losing a lot of our commercial land along Route 4 to residential developments. And, you know, in some cases, that's okay, but, you know, commercial land is really there to help in economic development of communities. So we as the planning board should think about how that corridor is still looked at now that other pieces have been developed in there. And past applicants have gotten approvals of residential subdivisions that are basically one cul-de-sac out. So it's a cul-de-sac that has access to Route 4 and a cul-de-sac that has access to Route 4. So I think that would be something that we should take a look at in the future.
Probably also, just to add to that, to consider the, you know, what some light commercial might look like as a low impact tax revenue source for Nottingham. So,
Or it could be a mixed commercial as well, you know.
Yeah. That's all I have for that. Joanna, was there other notices in here that you wanted me to pass around? I don't.
No, but I wasn't sure what tonight would look like, so tonight we're doing some things to discuss.
Oh, we were gonna get out of here early.
I promise it's more of just like a jogging
Yes,
memory
please do.
thing. November 13th is our first day to accept petitions to amend the zoning ordinance. So I'm just kind of like poking you guys that it's coming fast.
November what?
November 13th.
15?
Yeah, so, we may want to start maybe putting in some work sessions on zoning changes if we're going to be making any.
Does that mean also fitting in a meeting with the ZBA to look at what they're wanting?
That might be,
Because that's what we did last year, right?
that's what we've done in the past couple of years now. I do have a variance case coming up, that we can ask the ZBA about coming before you guys if they have anything they want to come to.
Yeah, that might be helpful, and then we can get gauge from them.
Okay?
I mean, it sounds like the one that we might want to look at is what you just mentioned, is to look at
Commercial.
commercial on Route 4,
Yeah,
and whether or not, you know, we want to,
maybe there's a, and I haven't looked at it really a lot in detail
yeah,
either.
yeah.
That might be an opportunity to look at either rezoning or better defining some of
Better
that zoning.
defining, yeah.
Could we find out how long they have for appeal? Because if we start making headway and then something else were to come down the pike from,
I think they have 3 years.
Yeah. But where that starts, I don't know what triggers the start of the 3-year.
From the time we accepted the deed, the deed was turned over, they have 3 years of grace.
And that deed was turned over in April or March,
April and March.
so 3 years from that point.
Is there something else, Joanna?
Anything else?
And also, and I'll have to look to see who needs to run again, but that's coming up too, so just keep an eye on the town website for, candidacy,
Deadlines.
signups and such, okay? It's hard to believe that Commissioner are here.
Looks like it's the two of you.
There.
Yeah.
Huh?
looks like it's the two of you.
Well, Gary and Susan?
Yeah. 2018?
It's the Gary and Susan campaign?
Yeah.
Oh, unless that's through 2018.
I thought it was through
No.
election. I look at it too.
No, that would be, we would have to run in 2018. Because then would be in 2019.
Yep. Sue and Gary.
Term 2018.
Yeah, because the next time they would vote would be 2019. Okay. We do have some plans to sign.
Yes.
We also have, we have the town and city. And this one's based on the 2017 annual conference. It's the center spread of this issue. Finding the right data, municipal budget committee. And state budget recap.
Woo-hoo!
So I'll go around if anyone else has comments, things they'd like to bring up.
I'm all set.
Sue and I attended a RTS site plan review workshop, and the notes from that are in your packet, along with, at that point, at that meeting, they mentioned to us that UNH has a stormwater center, and they have tours of it, and they highly recommend that if you could go to something like that, that we attend. So I did go to the website and pulled off an information sheet on it, and maybe at our next meeting, when we do some workshopping at all, we can discuss whether or not this is something we want to do as a group or just as individuals, and find out about it, especially with site planning being something that's important to us all the more.
Yeah, I've been to that a few times, and it's a really incredible area. In fact, it's seen as a national proving grounds for some of the stormwater management systems.
Oh, cool.
So they have individual systems that vary from rain gardens to infiltration basins to even specific private company products that are out there, porous pavements, porous concretes. They have all of that out on display and in operation. And what they do is they have part of their parking lot that funnels all the storm drainage into these systems so that they can then test for all of the removals of sediments and the infiltration rates and all that. So it's a really pretty cool place.
It sounds like it is.
And they change them all the time. They're updating them to different things.
One of the things that Sue and I both did, we took notes and then compared what we thought was, kind of key at it. And I grouped things up so that there's a section of things for us to consider for the future, things that were site plan specific, and then some key points about like knowing your regulations, because oftentimes the engineers do not. And what we want is to be able to present to them, this needs to be included in this so that they can get from us up front things that need to be changed. So they aren't coming back time after time after time. One thing I found really important, not important, but interesting while we were there, is that he mentioned, and by he it was Glenn Greenwood, that when they see site plans at their planning board meeting, they never approve them the same day. People always have to come back. Didn't you find that interesting?
I did.
It's like, oh wow, so it's like definitely you're coming back here. And then they were saying, make sure that we look at all of the notes pages and make sure that the stormwater was included in part of that, so. I'm not gonna go reading everything, I know you all can do
No,
that.
good, no,
but
this is great.
I just thought it was
Thank you for
interesting, and
Yeah, thanks for
attending it
putting
and
these notes
putting the notes together.
Yeah.
there's that, Sue and I did that.
So we're looking for a part-time building inspector, so, if you know of anyone that's looking for that job, that'd be great. The select board will, handle the other two things, code enforcement and the welfare that, Paul is doing. And then you have graciously,
What did you hear?
graciously,
Yes.
I said,
Yes.
stepped into, helping Joanna with the site plan reviews prior to. and stuff,
Interim.
so- Interim, yeah.
Yeah, and so we have had discussions trying to figure out how the board could get served in the capacity that it has in the past, or hasn't, or, now we're kind of at a point maybe where we can define roles and figure out what roles we need. There are some options out there, which we have used in the past, and options I say, for large subdivisions, we've turned to some outside consultants to help us with. We have built that into some of the budgets, but we also, those things get charged to the developer. So we can look into that as options moving forward. I've agreed to review the site plans site plans and subdivision applications as they come in, and provide a synopsis back to the board. I'll try and do as much as I can in writing so they make it into the packet. And if I don't get to that point, I will let you know that I've reviewed them. But also, I'd like to kind of challenge the board here to be proactive, look at the application materials, and I'm not saying nobody doesn't, but look at the application materials ahead of time, and so that everybody's more informed when we get here, and then that makes it a lot easier, a lot less questions, and then that would help. But I'd like to solicit also from members of, if we do have a position that opens up, whether we can get, or whether it's a parlay of the building inspector, part of their time, or somebody else's time that's part-time. Anyway, I'd like to see if there are roles people feel like we should definitely have. Maybe put some thought into that. If you have ideas tonight, great. If you have ideas tomorrow, just shoot me an email.
Do we know if there are any surrounding towns in a similar spot?
So Epping's looking for a planner and a plan, but they're looking for a planner. We're and I would say we're too small to have a full-time planner. I don't think that's what we need to have, but we might be able to share a resource that somebody, another community has, and Chris Sterndale is reaching out to other communities to find out if they have capacity, if somebody else is part-time on in their community, might be able to have part-time in our community as well. Didn't look like with the combination of what Paul was with the inspection, the planning, the zoning, those things, it didn't sound like it's not an easy role to fill all of those. It's not a position that one person typically would have, so looks like this might be maybe two separate positions.
So my question from a moment ago was, if, as you're taking on the role of sort of being in charge of making sure that the applications are appropriate before they come to the board, when you think something is over your head, do you make the decision to call in a consultant, or do you bring it to the planning board and the planning board makes that decision?
No, I would bring it to the planning board.
But is that the way, is that the rules? That's what I'm asking.
I don't know that it's the rules, but
So in other words, you could
It's-
if you, in your position, decide that I need help, and so we're gonna turn this over to a consultant.
in order for us to hire a consultant, it has to get the approval of the board, I think. And most of the reason why I'm a little vague on it, I mean, I'm a professional civil engineer and I'm licensed, and so I can review everything that comes before here. I don't have the time with my regular job to commit to that. So I'd like to keep it to some of the stuff we see 90% of the time. If that 10% of the larger subdivision comes in, I'd like to have that go to a consultant to look at it. I don't know if that answers the question that you had or concern.
Well, I guess I'm almost pushing it to the next level. Should we ask the town attorney if you have the authority to farm the work out, if you feel that it's either beyond you or encroaches too much on your time? Or does it have to go before the board to get to?
Yeah, I don't know that, but I think maybe we should get that answered. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
That
I'm
procedure.
not sure either.
Just, I mean, we don't want to be challenged on it at some point later on for something we decide to do that costs somebody money.
Right. Another part of that is the budgeting. And I was gonna bring it up anyway, so now's the time. To at least consider, do we wanna bring Stratford Regional into the picture somehow, whatever that looks like? But it would mean planning the budget also. So that could possibly help us to help with what Dirk's trying to cover, and I get it, you work full-time, so that's the other part of it. But also, we're talking about some granting areas possibly,
Right.
if we are.
In reality though, Gary, I think we have the money in our budget to do this. We haven't used it, very much of it.
Yeah.
Okay, my worry is that we make a decision that somebody doesn't like, that they have to go out and pay for what the board decides to do. Whose responsibility is it? That's what I'm worried
Oh,
about.
yeah, I understand.
When we have had applications that we do have go out for consultants, the developer has to agree to it. I mean, that's a requirement for us, the town, to have appropriate review of their subdivision, whether it's in-house or out-of-house. In-house, it doesn't get charged other than in the application fee itself.
Right. What I'm worried about is when it goes outside and the developer's is irritated that they had to do more than what they thought they were gonna have to do.
Well, we'd have to have that discussion with them early on. If they came in with a conceptual or even a discussion process, that we would have to say, this is, we've got a volunteer board, we have a part-time planning board secretary, we don't have that capacity. This is gonna be, get to that next tier of a major subdivision where those are reviewed out of house. That is borne on the developer applicants.
And I would add too that if we, let's
That's
say.
very
we-
common.
If we had a full-time planner, let's just say that, we would have to charge the applicant for that review that the planner is doing anyway. So it's, somewhere there's a cost.
And developers know that. I mean, developers expect that. For those type of subdivision developments that are, major subdivisions, they are expecting that. That's what happens in a lot of other communities similar to ours that doesn't have a full-time staff, an engineering staff. But to Gary's point, that is an option, that's kind of on the table here, is that we can look to, Stratford Regional Planning Commission, because they can assist through some of these reviews and some of these, pieces that planning boards go through. We're trying to figure out a long-time solution or a mid-term solution, not indicating who these people are. I'm filling in interim, but if I'm not here, then we have to find somebody else to do it. And I'd rather have a process that doesn't rely on the chairperson or any member to do those.
So to add to that, I'd also be willing to just talk with some of the folks at Stratford, just to kind of see, what our options are really, because there may be different ways to utilize that board, or that.
And that goes back to the town select board really, because it becomes budgetary, because we then would have to kick in, become a member.
Right.
And then those benefits, you can reap some of those benefits from that cost. But on the other hand, we also don't have a person that is somewhat of their time utilized right now. So there is, however you want to put it, there is some budget there. It was costing, that role in the planning board, it was costing something, because Paul was doing those roles and being paid for that, so.
So are you looking for a short-term solution for the interim? Or are you looking for an intermediate, or are you looking for the long-term?
Well, I'd like to mix the intermediate, I think in the interim, I think between myself and Joanna, we can kind of handle these things, between the applicants, and we've been communicating a lot more via email, so I think that's fine. I think it's the next step. What are we gonna do what's the replacement for Paul's role? What are we doing in that?
Just a couple thoughts that you had spoken of. I think the rule of thumb in general, if you're going to spend money, then the board has to approve. I mean, you can just do a general approval that if you run against a problem, you are welcome to use up to so much money. You already have the previous approval from the board.
I'm not charging the board for my time.
Okay, but
Mine's all
just,
volunteer.
just making that decision.
Mine's all volunteer.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
The second thing is, if we share a planner with another community, it's really important that we pick a community that's like-minded with Nottingham.
Yeah.
I'm not
and-
going to name any communities, but, there are some that are better than others, a lot better.
Nobody's better than Nottingham.
We have high standards.
All right, so I guess, thanks for the discussion. I think we'll just, if something pops up, let me know. And, we're working with Chris and the select board just to try and come up with what that role and what help does the planning board need? That's really the question.
I have one question about one of the roles that he was, as far as the public health piece goes with it. When some of the plans come forward, especially for site plans specifically, who's going to be the one that's going to look at the plan to recognize any public health issues that may arise from them based on what the company is or what their waste products are, or any emissions or any of that type of thing? Those are all public health pieces that I'm just,
I think that's something that the board would look at.
The select board
application.
or
No,
us?
the-
No, this board, yeah. So if we feel like there's an applicant that has those things, we can request it as a requirement of that applicant to provide us the information.
Okay,
And then we can always have a third-party opinion
okay,
if we don't agree with their specialist.
okay, good, thank you.
And then relative to like, we don't really do the septic plans approvals anyway.
Right,
I know Paul's role was somewhat in approving some test pits, doing some soil things, but all the septic plans are approved at
The state.
At the state.
right.
That's never been really the town's responsibility. Okay. That's enough for me talking.
It is. You didn't expect anything less from me, did you?
I had to fill in for Ed, he's not here. Fill the empty space.
Oh, good. I just want to reinforce what Teresa said about this workshop that we went to. And please, everybody, do your homework and just read through each of these items. We walked away with a ton of information. But in addition to just information, there are a couple items that we might want to consider to put into our town regs. And maybe we can discuss this at the next meeting if anybody has any thoughts on this.
Okay.
It was well worth the 2 hours, and it was free. And the second thing is, the Nottingham newsletter deadline is coming up this weekend. I have one item that that came to me to write about, and that was the signage for scenic roads that might be coming up in the future. If you have any thoughts about what you would like me to write about, specifically future sorts of things, just send me an email, and I'll probably write it up this weekend.
Okay.
And what are you gonna write about this? What-
Scenic roads from the Transportation Committee. We've been talking about a bunch of things, and one of the things that Michael brought to the meeting was we could get these little signs that we can put on street signs that say scenic road.
Oh,
So
okay.
some people don't even know they live on a scenic road, and there are certain characteristics that are important to Nottingham.
Signing the scenic roads that we do have.
Yeah.
That's it.
Gary?
I'm not gonna, I probably won't make this SRP quarterly, and I know, Turk, you mentioned maybe being able to do that. That's at, what's the name of that garden?
The rock garden?
Rock garden.
I don't know, is that what it's called?
No.
I didn't know the name of it. In Lee.
Don't do that.
In Lee, yeah.
I'm sure it has a fancier name than rock.
It does.
It does.
It's, yeah.
The meeting is there?
The meeting is there.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's,
so
that's
there's
Which is actually kind of neat, and I'm not going to be able to make, it's tomorrow, the meeting.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm not going to be able to make it, but.
But there is a tour, I think at 2:30 before the meeting, which I think is 4 o'clock.
Bedrock.
Bedrock
Gardens, thank you.
Gardens, yeah.
I was close.
Yeah, rock.
Joe?
Nothing for me, but a question for Gary. Anything in Stafford Regional around the future of transportation in the area as far as charging stations for alternate fuel or energy cars, things of that nature? Because that feels like something that we might want to start thinking about for our town in like the 5 to 10 year timeframe. If we were to put something in the budget for.
I can't say it's sounding familiar, like
Okay.
anything I've heard. I can ask that question.
Okay.
We could make the suggestion to Jody at Demon Store.
But, I'm sorry?
At Demons?
We could make the suggestion to Jody at Demon Store to replace his gas pumps.
There you go.
Probably throw it with one orange extension cord out, so here you go. Don't put that in the minutes. All right, thanks, that's all that we all had. Minutes, are they in here? Approval of minutes. We haven't done that in a long time, so that's why I'm,
What
missed them.
what dates, Joe?
8/24, right?
Hmm?
Was it August 24th? That's the only one I thought it.
Oh, they're not in here?
July 12th,
Wow.
July 26th,
I don't have that one.
August 9th, and August 23rd. Send all those out and make the edits requested.
What was the other one in July?
26th and 12th.
And you've received comments and made those edits? So you've received comments that have been solicited, those revisions have been made?
Correct.
Was it the 9th as well, August the 9th?
August 9th and August 23rd. Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of July 12th, July 26th, August 8th, August 9th, and August 23rd as written and
Second?
revised.
Motion and a second. Those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I wasn't at one of those meetings, so that's why.
That's okay, you can
You can still
still,
vote.
So, yeah, just so I read up on this a little bit, and I'll be brief, all right? So,
Watch.
oftentimes people abstain from voting because they did not attend the meeting. They do not need to abstain from that vote. They can vote because your vote is basically signifying that you're confident in the person that took the minutes, that have reviewed the minutes, and that those minutes are
Accurate.
reflecting accuracy.
Fair enough.
So,
Cool.
Then, yes, vote.
all right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. Everyone's in favor, unanimous again.
Sign.
We're out of here.
Sign.
We got a
plans.
sign.